24th, 2023 Beaverton Urban Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
I'm sorry, was Tyler doing that tonight? Okay, that's me. Never mind. Counselor or Commissioner Duggar?
I'm here.
Commissioner Hassan?
Present.
Commissioner Teeter?
Here.
Chair Tivnon?
Here.
Commissioner Walton?
Here.
Commissioner Ulvin?
Here.
Commissioner Vitko?
Here.
And the rest are absent.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start tonight with visitor comments. First on the agenda. Visitor comments allow visitors to speak to the Bureau Board about matters not included on tonight's agenda for a public hearing. For example, in a few minutes, we will have a public hearing on the Bureau supplemental budget. If you're here to comment on the supplemental budget, please hold your comments until we formally open the public hearing on the budget. If you wish to speak on a matter not scheduled as a public hearing on tonight's agenda, now is your time. Recording Secretary, do we have anyone here to address the Bureau Board?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to board communications. Do any board members have any information that they would like to share with the rest of the board and the interim executive director? Okay, keeping an eye on the chat, not seeing anything, we'll move on. We do not have minutes to approve tonight, so we'll go to our business items. First item on the agenda is a public hearing. Bureau Bill 2023-64, Resolution 2023-061, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2023, and making appropriations therefrom. Before we begin, I will explain how people can participate in this hearing. Anyone wishing to speak at this hearing should follow the instructions included on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public who speaks at tonight's hearing will have a maximum of 2 minutes. After each person speaks, board members may ask questions of the speaker. Now it's time for the staff presentation. Debbie, please take it away.
Good evening, board members. Tonight we're holding a public hearing to approve a supplement to our fiscal year 2023-24 budget. The supplemental budget process is used to ensure that Bureau maintains a balanced budget, and as plans change throughout the year, that we maintain that balance. So the request tonight is primarily technical adjustments that are a result of closing the books from last fiscal year. So, what we are reflecting some increases to contingencies for unspent money last year because the fund balance was higher than we had projected when we did put the budget together. And as we close the books, we find those things and we can make those technical adjustments and ask you to approve those. The other components to the supplemental request are carryover items. Those are items that were budgeted last fiscal year and just got delayed for one reason or another, and we're carrying the money forward from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, the budget forward. And then there is one final item is an additional appropriation to complete a reserve study for the Bureau parking garage. And that is what's in the agenda bill. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Are there any questions for staff from the board? Okay. All right, then I'll now open the hearing and take public comments. Recording Secretary, is there anyone here to testify?
No, Madam Chair, there is not.
Okay, well then moving on, I will now close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental budget as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for a vote. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
I just want to make sure I got the motion and second correct. That was Ulvin and Duggar.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Duggar?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassan?
Yes.
Commissioner Teeter?
Yes.
Chair Tivnon?
Yes.
Commissioner Walton,
Yes.
Commissioner Olvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitko.
Yes.
So it passes.
Great, thank you very much. On to the second item tonight, Bureau Bill 2023-65, Future of the First Street Dining Commons. Megan Bronstein, please proceed with your presentation, and then we will follow that up with questions from the board.
Wonderful. Good evening, Bureau Board members. My name is Megan Bronston. I am with CDD here at staff. And can someone give me a thumbs up that they see my PowerPoint? Thank you all very much. You guys are great at that. Thank you very much. My kids' classroom would really appreciate that promptness. Thank you. So tonight we are here to talk about First Street Dining Commons. We have spent the last year working with Mayor Reed, a consulting firm, to provide, to determine if we wanted to make this a permanent amenity for the community, what would that look like? So tonight we are asking that the Bureau Board please listen to the update. And we suggest that you listen with some context of some future conversations that this board will be having. Here in the next month or so, you're going to be paying attention to your 5-year action plan and deciding what should be included in that spending plan. You'll also be having a conversation regarding Bureau program income, now that Bureau is bringing in program income, and what should the policy be regarding how you use that today and into the future. And so since First Street Dining Commons has been brought up as an potential expense, as discussed in either of those areas, tonight we're hoping to provide you with some information to be taking into those conversations. As most of you know, the First Street Dining Commons was created in response to the pandemic. We had created a restaurant row, This Bureau Board had worked really hard to do that. And then restaurants were closed down and they were potentially about to die, which they did do across the nation and across this region. Many, many restaurants closed, but in part because of First Street Dining Commons and the other reactions that the city did to help these small businesses. We only lost one business specifically because of COVID, one restaurant business specifically, and they were closed down mostly because they were a catering business. So I call that a huge win. But fast forward, COVID unfortunately is still with us, but is no longer the same emergency that it was. And First Street Dining Commons has evolved to be this amenity that people are wanting to keep around, not just for the emergency, but for the free gathering space that it is. So in September 2022, we came before the Bureau Board and to City Council and were given with the results of a whole host of outreach that we had done specific to the Commons, as well as the Downtown Equity Strategy, the Parks, Downtown Parks and Open Space Framework Plan had completed their outreach. And all of these great efforts had come, and the community vision, and all of these efforts, First Street Dining Commons was brought up. And the idea of having publicly free gathering spaces that allowed dining, allowed supporting of local businesses, allowed kids play and adult play, and possibly a space for even small cultural events to occur. And so council gave us the direction to move forward with what we're showing this evening, which is research into what would it cost to do this? What would it look like, et cetera. And then finally, in June 2023, this fiscal year, this Bureau Board, along with then City Council, approved continuing First Street Dining Commons as an amendment to the fiscal year 23-24 budget. So Bureau is continuing to pay this year for its operation. So for the last year, our team has been working on a host of things. Who should be managing it? Where should it be located? What kind of amenities would be needed within it? And what, especially the expensive ones, and how would we pay for all of that? So let's talk about management real quick. Management of this future amenity could happen by us, it could happen by a partner, or it could happen as a hybrid of the two. We've had 2 conversations with partners we wanted to make sure that you were aware of. The first one is with THPRD, the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation. This happened over the summer. At a staff level for a living, you guys manage open spaces. You don't necessarily usually do urban open spaces, but is this something that you guys might be interested in having inside of your portfolio? it was coming up as one of those needs in downtown as a needed open space as part of the framework plan. And so the interest is potentially there to have a conversation, but they put pause and wanted to wait for the downtown framework plan to actually be approved and finalized, which it was. And it was approved over the last few weeks by both THBRD and City Council. So these discussions can continue. There's certainly, I have no crystal ball to say where they will go, but they are something that can continue. The second conversation was with Beaverton Downtown Association. They wouldn't necessarily be interested in managing the whole thing, but they are really interested in programming it and seeing and being involved in what happens on it and allowing small events to happen on it. And if we continue to contract out for management services, for example, they would be fine taking on the management of those contracts. They unfortunately don't have staff capacity at this time to be taking on this duty without additional support, since the city already supports their staffing needs. Additional research that we've done comparison with other national examples. We did a full locational analysis, which you will find as an attachment to your Bureau bill. And we've done a whole host of internal stakeholder discussions, everything from the police department to our engineers to all of our entities that do our permitting, et cetera, to really talk about what could this be and who could maintain it, our operations team, et cetera, what would that look like? And our key findings. One, the locational analysis, well, it looks at private property and public property and right-of-way. The current location is actually the ideal location for this type of use. It definitely scored a lot higher than a bunch of other potentials that we had found, and yeah, is the ideal site. But with that comes some opportunities and some challenges because it's right of way, and a great learning moment for me over the past couple of years. Right of way is not subject to building code. It is not subject for the most part to development code. That means that if you want to do weird things like put permanent structures on it or open air Beaverton non-permanent structures, there isn't a code to allow that. Open air Beaverton, we had to write new code to allow these temporary structures to go on. Here, if we wanted a permanent covering or permanent restroom building, we would need new codes and new policies. So while this is something that has been found that we can do here, do know that it will take time. It will be a cross-department team that would have to come together to do that new legislation to create those new codes. And it would take about 2 to 3 years given current workloads to be able to finalize that. And so when we think about the timing of when we would have this big, beautiful thing, should we want to move forward with the big, beautiful thing, we need to do legislation first. Then we can finalize the design based off of the rules that will keep it safe. Then we would do construction, and then we can open. So this is a multi-year process if we want to go the full option. The other finding was replacement and widening of our current sidewalks on both sides of this current location is desperately needed. Current code is that you want your sidewalks at a minimum of 10 feet wide. Ours in this area are 4 to 6 feet wide, and they're not in great condition. We are even missing some curbs, and some of the items that we currently have out there are trying to hide that fact and trying to keep it as nice for the pedestrians as possible. This is usually something that the property owners are responsible for maintaining. So it's their responsibility to maintain if they are broken and choppy. But if we end up wanting to make a beautiful amenity that we want the community to come for, this would probably be an opportunity, is our recommendation, it's an opportunity where we partner with those property owners to also make sure that the sidewalks are up to snuff for what we want for pedestrian safety. Okay, so I'm about to get into the 6 options that we have, all of this research has resulted in. But first, I want to make sure that we talk about the operations. Ongoing operations will be needed, and the cost for ongoing operations will be needed in all of the options. Other than sneak preview, one of the options is to close, and that one would be relevant. But the rest, you would need ongoing operations. Right now, this year, with us renting tents and contracting out for daily maintenance, that's $160,000. To do that same level, we're actually recommending for in future years, $180,000 to $200,000 would be a traditional annual budget. if we're able to buy our own stuff so that our ops team can be maintaining our own stuff and we don't have to rent out or contract out, that number does go down. We're currently estimating that would be around $80,000 to $100,000 a year, but it really depends on what it is and what is needed maintenance wise for that number. The only two sources that we currently have available potentially to us for ongoing operations is general fund and possibly Bureau program income. As I shared earlier, you all will be having a discussion about what program income, Bureau program income should be used for, and this might not be on the list. That will be up to you. And as we all know, general fund has its own limitations with its budget. Okay, let's get into the 6 options. I have a couple caveats that I want to give about the 6 options. You're about to see some pretty pictures, some designs. Please note, these are not designs. I shouldn't have used that word. These are meant to be concepts just to give you a flavor of what this can look for. Mayor Reed was very nice enough to put these together, but in no way has a design process happened, and it would happen should we move forward with any of these. So option number 1, we can close. We can say that this was a wonderful amenity and a nice to have, but our budgets are where our budgets are, and we just don't have the funding for it. If that is ultimately what is decided, then our staff's recommendation is that it closes either this January, so after the holidays, or it closes, or you're open for one more summer, all the way through Beaverton, which is the city's holiday event, which is huge for the Commons, and so we will close next November. Option 2, you can continue as is. And we can continue renting and we can continue managing as it currently is, and maybe in the future discuss other options. Okay, option 3, this is what we're calling the temporary use. This is it remains essentially what it is now. It's a street with a temporary use on top of it, except for we go out and we purchase our own equipment. We purchase, frankly, nicer stuff, safer stuff, equipment that matches the amenity level that our community and frankly this board and council have all asked for, and then if we own it, that also means that we can maintain it, and so that operational cost goes down. That being said, however, it will cost a little bit of money for us to buy the nicer stuff. It is estimated that will cost us here in the construction line item $450,000 to $850,000, depending on what equipment we do. But we don't have to attach it to the street. It can be temporary in nature, both the kids' equipment and everything that we do. We will recommend a little bit of design money, so that would be the first thing that we ask for in a budget. We're estimating that would be $10,000 to $30,000, but that would allow us to make sure that it's a really good design and really good level of finishes that we're wanting. And staff impact, we estimate for this one is low. We just need to manage the design and the purchasing process. As you can see from the potential sources, the GF, which is general fund, and Bureau program income are listed here, as well as potentially grants. We haven't identified any specific grants that are qualified, but that doesn't mean that they're not out there. And a full, thorough search perhaps hasn't been done to date quite yet. But note that Bureau is not here. Traditional urban renewal funds are your main pot of money other than program income. And that's because all of this equipment is movable, and urban renewal funds can only be used for permanent infrastructure. And so traditional urban renewal funds would not be qualified for this. Okay, option 4, temporary use, which is what we just discussed. So everything that we just said, plus a streetscape project. So plus those sidewalk improvements that I talked about earlier that really bring it up to code. Here you can see the Marianne on the right-hand side, which is our most recent sidewalk in downtown. As you can see, things like street trees and street lamps and bike racks, and a wide enough sidewalk for pedestrians to safely walk past each other. This one costs a little more money to do a full sidewalk upgrade. Our staff estimate that would be 1.4 to 1.8 million. The same source of fund here, we could potentially use, urban renewal funds because it is permanent infrastructure. And we could possibly dip into the street fund. That would need to be explored more, but the street fund is eligible depending on the nature of improvements. Okay, 2 more options. Option 5. The purpose of this one is a flexible street with the ability to close and convert to a plaza regularly. That regularly can be defined loosely. Regularly could be seasonal. It could be when Pride Parade wants to come through. It could be on the weekends. The idea here is we would upgrade the sidewalks as we previously discussed. Or one of the reasons being is then they're wide enough to put some infrastructure in, such as poles, such as the ones that are seen here, that can then host the covering over the street when we want to have the temporary covering. You can do removable bollards. You can do infrastructure underneath the play equipment that then cars can drive on the footings, and the play equipment can be removed. We also have some optional add-ons. We have food. We can add on a food truck infrastructure. So one of the options that was listed in the revenue generation exploration, which that is also part of the Bureau bill, is to review what our options were there, was we could have a tenant on this space that's paying rent. And one of the options for that is that we give infrastructure for a food truck to be able to come in into this site. We want to be careful about how we do it and make sure that the tenant doesn't compete with those who are around, but it's something that we can do. We could also provide infrastructure for a bathroom trailer. Bathrooms were definitely listed as something that would be nice, an amenity to have here, or a porta potty corral. For option 5, the construction costs are around the same amount as the last option. Actually, they're slightly down is what estimates came in, but I'm guessing that since these are all rough order magnitude prices, I should have said that right off the bat. That means these are just guesstimates. This is the ranges for you to know exact around how much money we're talking about. So the construction would be 1.3 to 1.5 million. The design costs go up here. We definitely need a little bit more infrastructure design. So it's 400 to 600,000 estimate. The same sources of funds on the last one. But here we're getting into high staff impact, because again, this is where we're going to need that cross-department team to be working on legislation. This includes permanent infrastructure going into right-of-way, and therefore we would need to change policies and codes, as well as do CIP prioritization and design and construction, etc. Okay, the last option, option 6, is a permanent plaza. This one is saying pedestrians are first. Pedestrians are our priority, and we're creating a space that will be permanently closed to vehicle traffic. We're going to take the street, what is currently street and sidewalk, and we're going to make them the exact same height. We're going to make plaza infrastructure. We're going to do permanent overhead structures and play equipment, permanent landscaping. And then the optional add-ons for this are you could have a permanent restroom building, or you could have a permanent kiosk for a tenant. The cost here, this one goes up. It's the most expensive one. This one we're estimating in the $4 to $5 million range. And design costs are about the same though, the 400 to 600,000. Again, this would be a high staff impact. It would take multiple years because we have to do that legislation ahead of time. Okay, so just one more touch on timing. So option 1, which was clothes, and option 2, which was continue as is, probably didn't need to be on here, so I didn't put them on. Option 3, temporary, we buy our own stuff. We would need next fiscal year to do the design process and the purchasing. It possibly could open by next fiscal year, but I was trying to be a little conservative, and so we'll say that it would open at probably the beginning of fiscal year 25-26 with the new equipment. Option 4 was the same thing. We buy our own stuff that sits on top, but we also do sidewalk improvements. Now we need to design the sidewalk improvements, and design takes time. We then need to do the construction, and then we can open. And options 5 and 6, so this was the flexible option and the permanent plaza option. Both of them need to go through the 2 to 3 year legislation process. They then need to do probably at least a year of design, especially since we want to make sure that we have robust community engagement during that process, construction, and open. And please note that this means up to 4 more years of needing to do operations if we keep it open during this process. And operations would need to continue to be funded as we continue. And then of course, operations will need to be funded after, but the price may go down once we own our own stuff. So thank you very much for listening to my update. Again, I hope that you received the context that you were needing for some future conversations. Our next steps are we're going to be going to City Council, the first or second council meeting in December. Please note that's different than what was in the Bureau bill. Specifically, we were wanting to wait until after City Council was able to do their retreat And frankly, Bureau was able to start their 5-year action plan conversation here in November. So that way, those key conversations were in the heads of council when we go talk to them in December. And we ask for direction. Staff needs direction as to how to move forward as we start planning our budget for next year, because we have to put in our numbers starting in January, and for what we want staff to be working on for the rest of this year. So I am now going to pause and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Megan. And right before I open it up to questions, I just want to just throw out there that we are going to be discussing this as a council in December. So as much as possible to view this through the Bureau lens, and keep it focused, hyper-focused on that. I think that would be helpful to also just beneficial for us to differentiate our thoughts for that versus when we get to council. Just an idea. Board member Hassan.
Yeah, just a really quick question, Megan. What is the input, if any, and maybe we haven't done this yet, of the businesses in that area? Is there like a strong sense? Like, I just would love to help. I'd love to understand that before kind of weighing in on this.
Great question. We have actually started, it has been a full year since we had talked to businesses. As of a year ago, all of the businesses, but a couple in the area, were very much in favor of making this permanent. The same people that I'm talking to are coming up with the same answers. So the folks that are interested are interested in reopening to parking we have a couple businesses nearby that have their own parking lots, and we have the hair salon that's immediately adjacent to the First Street Dining Commons, who continues to have as a primary user of the salon is senior members who they would really love to be able to park immediately in front of her business. Everyone else so far that we have talked to are very much in favor of making this a permanent space. Permanent being long-term, permanent doesn't have to be year-round.
Okay, thanks. I want to make sure, like, obviously we've got some business there and make sure we're centering those voices. So thank you.
And to be clear, I specifically was checking in with immediately close businesses. We haven't done a new survey that includes all of downtown businesses.
Just to follow up on that, has there been any thought to surveying people that are using the commons, like doing the clicker to see how many people are showing up at different times of the week, times of day, if they're eating at neighboring restaurants? Has there been any kind of data gathering in that way?
We have been doing data gathering a little bit passively. I shouldn't say passively. Whenever our cleaners come by, we have them log how many people are there during the cleaning time. I will say, therefore, the problem with that is that we specifically chose cleaning times that aren't busy, so that way they can actually get to the tables and wipe them off. That being said, they are, it's definitely being used. We can gather data to really see, like go out there during the busy times. Frankly, I'm taking my kid this weekend to Beaverton, and I definitely plan on enjoying it, and I should probably count while I'm there as well. So it is definitely the busiest day that I've ever seen the Commons is Beaverton. And you should all go as well this weekend. It's going to be a great event. Dan, you should come and make sure that you're all dressed up.
If you see anyone in a giant gorilla suit, that's my son. So we'll be there. Board member Olvin.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to compliment staff because the creativity that you demonstrated and all the cool ideas you had and, you know, the pivoting during the pandemic in this space was outstanding. So I just want to recognize that. Having been part of the original visioning for Beaverton Urban Renewal, though, I feel like the use of tax increment financing for these things strays from our original intent for urban renewal funds. I feel like there are so many needs within the Beaverton urban renewal area to remediate blight, to add infrastructure, and to remove impediments that are otherwise in the way of development occurring, you know, basically, right? Removing those impediments and incentivizing private development that wouldn't otherwise occur. And any of the expenditures, especially the more significant options, takes away from the ability to do that infrastructure in other areas where there is actual blight. And so this is where I'm being a little bit of a purist to the original vision for the proceeds of tax increment financing and the original vision and commitment that was made to stay pretty true to that. And then also the future projects in other areas of the Beaverton urban renewal area. So I have a little bit of discomfort with tax increment financing funds being done. I mean, that said, like grants and THPRD and general fund, if it's that large of a priority for the city council, is great. But tax increment financing, I think, strays from that original vision.
Board Member Duggar.
The other question, Megan, around, excuse me, the designation of right-of-way. Why does that have to be complicated? Like, it seems to me, rather than create all these new laws and legislation and invest all of the time, that we could vacate it, or we could declare it park space, or, you know, I mean, there has to be another way rather than doing it the complicated bureaucratic way. So help me understand that a little more. Like, why do we have to go that route?
I had the exact same question, Councilor Duggar. Sorry, Board Member Duggar. I forgot which meeting I was in. The answer ends up being, if you vacate this space, the property then immediately goes back to the adjacent property owners, but it goes back as additions to their current tax lots. So even if, let's say, the 4 different property owners that are currently adjacent were like, we all want to sell this back to you, no problem, and we said we had enough money to acquire this, they then would have to subdivide their lots, to re-subdivide their lots. And so that little slice that we just gave back to them becomes their own lot. Unfortunately, per code and rules that are not controlled by the city, that would not actually count as a lot. We would never allow that subdivision because that use is a lot all by itself. This little slice next to a furry would not be allowed to be subdivided. So once we vacated it, we could never again use the property and get the property, purchase the property back as it currently is divided, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Is there, and maybe this was not presented as an option, because I know you said earlier you're kind of having initial conversations with THPRD. If fruit comes of that conversation, right? If they want to continue, is there an option where we sell that property to them, the right of way to them, for $1 or something like that, right?
My understanding is, because it's right of way, the city of Beaverton will always have to be the owner. It isn't a piece of property like a real lot that you can then turn around and sell to anybody. So even if we make a future arrangement with THPRD to be the manager of what happens on top, we will always have to be the property owner. We being the city of Beaverton, not we as in Bureau.
A third question that's probably too technical for this. Is there a possibility that, rather than making a rule for all of right-of-way conversions or anything like that, we designate this a very specific kind of right-of-way and then write one quick rule for it, right? So it doesn't take 2 years. Like, this is right-of-way abutting a whatever in a whatever zone that is very specific. You know, there's one of these in the entire city, and we can write the rule for that, right? Like, is that an option? Because I'm just trying to figure out how we can, like, this feels like a really big barrier to me, because I'm leaning towards 5 and 6. And I think when I think of placemaking and all the things that Bureau should be doing too, this is part of it. And it's incredibly important to central neighborhood businesses and residents that we figure this out. And 2028 feels too far to me.
I fully understand. And as one of the staff who would have to be working on that multi-year effort, I hear you. However, I can say that there are a lot of other priorities. It is a multi-group effort. So we have to look at the building department's priorities. It would ultimately live in site development. Legal would have to be involved. We have our engineers would have to be involved. Our planners would have to be involved, and all of them already have priorities that have been written by mostly city council, right? So if they didn't have any other priorities in the world, this might be something that could be faster. But in reality, what I've been told by those managers, division managers, is that this is probably, we should expect that this would be a multi-year effort.
Yeah.
But we did get really smart brains all in a room specifically to chew on that exact topic.
Okay. I think that's the last of my questions for now. I mean, I have other questions for the council meeting, but that'll be a specific other. So thank you.
Yeah, I have a feeling all of us will, it's beneficial. We'll have time to think about all the questions that we want to ask. Okay, so let's see here. We've got board member Teeter.
Thanks. And Dan, I saw your hand up for a second. Did you want anything to say to that?
I was just gonna comment on what's underneath the road there, right? The reason those options are so expensive is there are a significant amount of utilities underneath that specific portion of road, and they need to be moved and be functional, right? And we'd have to be able to access them for ongoing maintenance. That's part of the cost, but also I think part of the complication of just sort of waving the right of way wand and figuring out, right, like what to call it or how to deal with it. We'd still have to access it, you know. So there's complications in just operations, I think.
Okay, thanks. Okay, this is fascinating. I've had a lot of questions similar to the ones that have already been asked. I was going to ask some of the same questions Councilor Duggar just asked too, but this fascinating response. I didn't know some of the depth of that, so I appreciate those responses. I heard board member Oven's comments about the original vision of Bureau, and that was not something that I admittedly considered, and I think it was a really good point. So I know just personally, like I want to look at that some more and see how it fits with the original vision of Bureau. Is it supporting future development around it? I think it's a good consideration. There are a couple questions I had about potential partnerships. The first one is, I think THPRD is such like a key piece in all of this that so much of my thoughts will rely on their response. So if they were a partner, I assume would some of the funding be a potential to come from them, or could they help do some of the improvements, or what would their role be? Is that still being worked out?
That is absolutely still up in the air. We have the capital improvement questions and we have the ongoing management. I can't imagine we would necessarily pay them to manage the space. So if they were managing it, maybe that means they're paying, but who creates the original amenity? These are all questions. It's completely unknown at this point. And again, it was a staff level discussion. No decision maker level discussions have occurred.
Okay, that's good. There's a group in Portland or in the Portland metro area called D-Pave. I don't know if anybody's heard of them. Okay, I see some heads nodding. Megan or Tyler, do either of you want to share more about what they do, or maybe you've talked with them?
Yeah, D-Pave is this really great Portland-based organization that now works more, not just in Portland, but their original purpose was to go around and find these random what used to be a parking lot that maybe someone wants to now make a garden or something, and let's get rid of this hot concrete and let's put in hopefully more greenery or soft space. But they now have moved on to also, they will help with the funding and sometimes the manpower if you want to rip up concrete. I do want to state, if that's where you're going, Councilor Teeter, and apologize if I'm going in the wrong direction, but as Dan was saying, there are major utilities underneath this road, some of which we potentially will need to move, some of which will never be able to be moved unless you want to spend a $250 million, which I'm not hearing anybody has that much money. So with that assumption, we're not ripping up, it mostly has to maintain hardscape so we can still access what's underneath.
Okay, that is where I was going with that. So thank you. And I think there's one more question. Okay, no other questions. Just final comment that I'll share is I've been pretty connected to this since the very beginning of it. And when I was with the Beaverton Downtown Association, I did some of that informal data gathering about attendance of the space too. But there wasn't like great methodology with it. It was just whenever I would be passing a couple times a day, I would count how many people were in in the dining commons at various parts of the day. And there would often be 30 or 40 people in it at random times in the day. There would sometimes be zero. But overall, like if I'm looking at this as future park space or as potential park space, it gets a lot of use compared to potential parks, or compared to current parks that we've got, just because there's so much around it and so many residents and businesses. So I will say I'm pretty biased. Like I really want to see this stay and grow and continue. I am wrestling with a lot of the questions you all have asked us here too. So I'm looking forward to having some more time with this and seeing where future conversations go. But I really appreciate the in-depth discussion here.
Can I follow up on one thing you said earlier, Councillor Teeter, and
Yeah.
it circles back to the outreach. We do have some anecdotal data of La Floridita recently opened. If all of you have not been to that bakery, part of the feedback that they gave staff was one of the primary reasons they located there was because it was close to First Street Dining Commons, and they really loved the community feeling that provides. Likewise, Koya Sushi has recently changed hands to a new owner. And while the number one reason that they purchased their business was because they thought it was a solid business with really great food, the secondary reason was because it was immediately adjacent to what is obviously, what I believe they said, the heart of Beaverton was the quote that I got from them. We also know that we have multiple developers in the area who use this to do their meetings and meet here first to pitch people on what Beaverton can be and what development can be, and then they go off to wherever site that they're going to go. So that's just anecdotal data, but I wanted to add it to what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I remember a year or so ago, I was talking with one of the neighboring business owners, and they were saying that they were wanting to expand their own service area and their own business, but they wanted to wait and see what happened with the dining commons first before they expanded. So I think the anecdotal data is great, and I would love to see more of that sort of stuff.
Board Member Walton.
Yeah, I just had a question about if there's any sort of funding that could come from the businesses. Like this is a logistical kind of question more than a would they actually give the money, but like would that be a possibility, like in all the rules?
Absolutely. Again, one of the reports, I gave you guys so much information in the Bureau bill, but one of them was a revenue generating opportunities that we explored. And one of them was, how could we have the businesses participate in ongoing operations? It was usually the lens that I was looking at. And there is absolutely opportunities. There's many different models that we could go. One of the models that was thrown out was, what if the Beaverton Downtown Association ended up ultimately creating a fund where they did a host of things that they were providing to downtown businesses by businesses contributing into this fund. And because they did that, one of those things would be contributing into the operations, for example. There are definitely other models that can be researched, but I think that I've heard, and I believe our staff team has heard loud and clear, that should this become a permanent ongoing thing that the city and or Bureau is funding, that identifying how the businesses might participate would be beneficial. I do not expect that, however, should that move forward and should they decide that they do want to fund that, I don't imagine that it would be the majority of our budget. So you still assume that we would have to come up with the majority of the budget, but that they should be helping to fund it.
Yeah. Well, and there could also be like the logistical cost of having to organize getting all the money that might offset some of the money.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Well, seeing no other names in the chat, I'll weigh in a little bit. So the community identity category under the way that we're parsing out the TIF funds seems like this might fit into that category. Maybe. I know there's like street trees, sidewalk improvements and things like that, but it's also this idea of placemaking. And if people are already referring to it as the heart of Beaverton, I think there could be an argument made that Bureau should have some skin in the game to help with making some decisions around it. And if we decide that we don't want to use any Bureau funds, I think that would effectively remove Bureau's voice from that. So that's something to consider. The reservations that I have is that COVID didn't kill these restaurants, but construction of that nature on that street for that, the big one could very easily keep people from going there because they want to avoid that type of construction zone, but also just noise and debris and safety issues, blocking things off, access, all of that. I think that could be extremely disruptive to that area, and that would have to be something you'd have to take into consideration, that we might lose some folks in the process of that if they can't make it through a long construction schedule. The other thing that came to mind for me is I've been in open plazas that are extremely vibrant. The first one that comes to mind is 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, which is pretty famous, and it's old now, but it's still pretty utilized, activated, and well attended. But I've also been in others that haven't aged well and are kind of empty. And it's just because the things around it changed, or the uses in the immediate area just pulled people's attention elsewhere. And now you're stuck with this hardscape that just isn't flexible to be used in other ways. So looking through all of those options, I think it's in our best interest to keep it flexible so that we can adapt as we need to. And that's assuming that Vera decides that this is something that, either we go like really deeply into supporting and investing in, or play some part in it. And then the last thing is just getting some good numbers, just some polling out there to find out who's using it, how often they're using it, demographics, how many are bringing their kids, how many are having meetings there, where are they eating, and try and get a sense of what kind of an economic benefit it's having for the surrounding businesses. Even if it's just a sample size of some sort, that would be great, because I know with my own eyes and having spent a lot of time there myself, that it always seems like there's a decent amount of people there, but I probably go at typical times of day for myself, and I don't see it at other times. So having that holistic data, I think, would be helpful. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add thought-wise to this before we move on?
I'll just say I appreciated your points about the placemaking, and those other things that could be attractive forces for future development. So those were nice points too. Thank you.
There's the idea of the gateway. Welcome to. I'm bullish on us doing that on Canyon, Farmington, and entry points into our city, that people actually know they're in Beaverton. And this also seems like an area that might be a place to trumpet that. Board Member Vitko.
I think someone mentioned this, but I just want to reiterate, I think it's really important, and I think it actually was you, Megan, who was answering another question. I think it's just really important that we hear what all the businesses in downtown, how they feel about this, and getting all of that feedback, because those of us who use it and love it, that's obvious, but I know that there's other contrary voices. And so making sure that we spent a lot of time and energy investing in our old town, not just Bura, but the city as a whole and the community that lives here. And so making sure that our neighbors' voices are heard, the neighboring business voices are heard. And so I think that's an important piece as we move forward. And I would echo the sentiment of just really wanting to get a little bit more quantitative data also, as some of the qualitative stories from the downtown area, but some quantitative data on what would maybe make the most sense. Because I think that will feed into really what the level of permanence, if the decision is to keep it and not close it, what that level of permanence looks like or doesn't look like.
Board Member Decker.
I mean, I was going to half jokingly say this, but only half, because half of me is very serious. But I have this long-term vision too for you guys are familiar with the stag sun in downtown Portland, and it gets like the nose at the holidays, or the red nose or whatever. And I've always wanted, like, as a downtown resident, and like I want a giant statue of a beaver, like that goes back to like the roots of the town, and then we could put a nose on it. in the holidays, and that could be at First Street Dining Commons. Only partially kidding, but only partially, because that's still on my long-term plan. And I think that'd be make for great placemaking. And now I'm going to shut up.
For now, we'll just have to make do with Odin. With a little red nose on. Okay, and then, let's see here. Board Member Hassan.
I'll be quick. I loved both what Chair Tivnon shared and Board Member Alvin about the TIF. That really got me thinking, and also Board Member Vitko. I do want to like second a lot of what Board Member Vitko was saying. Like, I know that it's a beautiful space and I love it too. Is this the right place for us to be investing right now? And are we saying no to other things by investing in it? And that's a hard question that I do want us to not be afraid to ask because of the investment, because of the time, because of the impact. So I'm not saying I'm any one way. It's just that weighs heavily on my mind, that if we're saying yes to this, are we saying no to something else? We don't know what we're saying no to. So just some thoughts. Thanks.
Okay. All right, great. Well, do you have what you need from us, Megan?
I do. This was perfect. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have what you need to go into your conversations.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, then we will be moving on to our next item. Let me just move down to it. It is Bureau Bill 2023-66, Amendment to the Bureau Bylaws. Megan Thornton is available to walk us through the bylaws tonight, which are proposed to be adopted by resolution this evening. It looks like we're just going to tee up a presentation. So Megan, when you're ready, take it away.
I don't have a presentation actually this evening because you already had a work session that went fully through the entire set of bylaws, and your Bureau bill speaks specifically to the handful of changes that were made. I think I'll just briefly go over those 5 changes, and then I'll take your questions, and then the board can move from there. So the 5 changes, just briefly, there was a change to the 20%. We made that a very specific number of how many people can be on the URAC board. That's in your rules. We added an introductory paragraph to make it clear that all of the members or all of the personnel can delegate their duties to other members, not just the executive director. And then we also allowed, by addressing board member Kimmy's question, we included a provision that allows members to call a meeting in particular circumstances. And then finally, the final 2 changes were the allowance for a substitute motion. And that was this idea that you could in a friendly way, essentially amend a motion if you were the original motion maker, so that you didn't have to go through the entire process of Robert's rules. So that alternate is in your rules as well. And then finally, we reformatted and included a new provision in the rules that allows the board to vary the agenda. So those were the 5 things that came up in your previous work session. They're all addressed in your rules, and that again was attached to your packet. And I'm happy to take any questions the board may have.
Sorry. Thank you, Megan. Board Member Hassan.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. So thanks for that change. I know it says that URAC can have 3 members outside of the city limits. I'm just curious, is there any language around Bureau members being outside of the city limits? I didn't see it when I was quickly skimming.
That change was specific to just URAC. And again, it used to be a percentage, which meant that it was 2.6 individuals, but that doesn't make sense for a rule, which is why we put in an actual number instead.
And we don't have a number for Bureau, like everyone. I'm just curious. And would it be in another place, or it's just not here?
I am not. The short answer is I do not recall the answer to that, so I'd have to look.
Okay, because I mean, my gut is like, in Bureau, we should make sure that a certain number of people are in the city limits, and I don't know what that number is, and it should be somewhere if it's not.
So the 4 additional members that are added that make up the borough board, it does not specify it does not specify where those individuals would reside.
So in theory, they could live all outside of Beaverton based on what you're looking at.
However, they do have to be appointed and appointed by the mayor.
So I'll just throw it out there. Is it so impossible to add that since we're here? And like, it just makes me think that there should be some line that says something along the lines of the number of folks that should be within the city limits.
Yes, if that was what the board wanted to do, I don't think there's any reason why we could not make an amendment to the rules to specify something of that nature, but I see a couple of hands going up, so I will let them speak.
Please, thanks.
Let's start with Tyler.
Great comments, Board Member Hassan. I think what we have done in the past is that there had to still be a connection back to the city. And I forgive me if it's in the plan. I thought it was in the bylaws, but maybe not. But it was like a special district with Ms. Solon here, in which Cassandra does not live in the city limits, but obviously TBFNR serves the city. Being a property owner or a business owner, but you may reside outside of the city limits. And so as you discuss this, maybe just to take that in consideration of having some parameters around, if that is a consideration that you're interested in.
And I'm guessing, Cassandra, that's what you were going to say.
Yep, you said everything I was going to say, just based upon my recognition of the original intent. There had to be a nexus with the plan, and then I wanted to say, like, I'm an example of that, but he did a better job.
And I don't know if Board Member Kim, I think Bethany when I think him because he's helped create it. I don't know if he lives there or not, but I believe he does. And or is he in Beaverton?
Okay. He is not inside the city limits of Beaverton, not Bethany.
Okay.
All right. There, but his company owns a property, which is La Scala in downtown.
Gotcha. Okay. My only thoughts on this, I'm not seeing anyone jump into the chat, is just those types of complexities that we might not want to tie our hands together with some language that ends up making it rigid. And with it being 4 seats and them being appointed, it seems like there's some good vetting that happens in the process to make sure that there's a good representation on Bureau. It's just my thoughts.
Can I just, I don't, let me be clear. First of all, I'm not trying to like check everyone's address. Y'all are great. I love you. Like, I want you on the board. It just seems like if URAC has a requirement, should Bureau, and it's not a requirement, it's just simply some language. And maybe I'm overthinking it, but like if URAC says, and it says what 3 members outside of the city limits is okay, then should we have something more explicit like that? That's just my thought.
Okay, Board Member Duggar.
Yeah, I conceptually agree with Board Member Husson. But I also hear what Tyler, I think that makes sense. So I don't think we should change it, but I also wonder if we should just drop the requirement from URAC, right? So it matches Bureau rather than do it the other way around, and then use the appointment process to vet people for their residency, for whatever we want at that point, just to give URAC some flexibility. I'm okay with as it is either. I just don't know. But that would be the way I would solve that, is because I do think there's something to making them match the standards, but I would go the other way, but totally open to that.
Board Member Teeter.
I'll go to Dan first if I can.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
You're good.
No, it's okay. I was just going to point out the difference, or a difference between the two is that Bureau, we have council, right? So we've got all of you as a majority, given the number of seats, right? So like, I think the intent, correct me, Megan, was to make sure that there was more guarantee of where folks lived, given the representation on the 2 boards. But either way, I mean, you're always going to have a majority of Beaverton residents on Bureau, just given the current makeup.
Board Member Teeter.
Okay, now I'm ready. I'm curious about the makeup of URAC. Do we require, well, for Bureau, we require special districts to have a seat, and it's okay if they're not a Beaverton resident. For URAC, do the special districts have a seat on the advisory committee?
Not specifically. We
Okay.
have had special districts on the advisory committee. In fact, TBFNR has always been on URAC until Board Member Olvin decided that she would accept being a Bureau board member.
Okay. Okay, great. No, just asking. I'm trying to figure out how all the pieces connect together because I agree with the line of questions conceptually. I'm just trying to figure out if we need the flexibility or not. So I don't know yet.
I'll jump in. I'm good to like keep going. I just year 3, there's been conversations around like how boards and commissions work. And so it is important to be more prescriptive than less, in my opinion, but I don't feel so strongly about it because we do have staff vetting this. But I do think when we have language like this, we need to be thoughtful. I'd actually go the other way, Councillor Duggar. I'd say if URAC is doing that, then we should too. I don't know that I want them having like taking that out. So I'm fine with moving this as is, but for like our council, like that muscle of like making sure that the language in these documents is super critical because it builds how staff does their work. So it's okay if we want to do it, keep it like status quo, but just something for us to be thinking about, especially as we head into the council retreat conversation in a couple of weeks.
Yay, I'm very excited for that. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other comments or chat names, so we'll move on. What is the pleasure of the board? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I can do it. I'll make a motion to approve Bureau Bill 2023-66.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Hassan, seconded by Board Member Duggar. City Recorder, will you please call the, oh, sorry, any discussion? Okay, hearing none. City Recorder, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Vitko?
Yes.
Commissioner Olvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Walton?
Yes.
Chair Tivnon?
Yes.
Commissioner Teeter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassan?
Yes.
Commissioner Duggar?
Yes.
At 7 yes, 0 no, 4 absent.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to be moving on to our last agenda item for the night, the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Weinheimer, do you have anything for us tonight?
I think just a couple calendar items, if I can. One, that our next meeting is November 28th. We're looking to do that preferably in person. So looking for hopeful thumbs up that can work. And the reason we're looking to do that in person is we really want to focus on what Councillor Hassan said, Board Member Hassan, that we really, the but for, right? When we spend money, we aren't really seeing the full picture all the time. And we really need to spend time on developing that 5-year action plan and want to roll up our sleeves, have more of a work session and kind of an idea generating discussion that we hope to do in person and maybe be more productive and fruitful by virtue of sort of sitting across the table and maybe some of that collaborative work. And so that is our hope. On the 28th, we could do it in the City Council chamber and do it in person. We are likely, I think Tyler is working on making sure we've got some facilitation and support from some folks in terms of the background around urban renewal in the state and kind of good practices, as well as what we've committed to in the past. We like to kind of go over some of the finances, where we stand currently, just really be able to dive in and spend pretty much the entire agenda on that topic, having a work session. So hopefully kind of move that body of work forward, and recognizing that we're doing that in the holiday season. And so that it may be a little bit inconvenient and challenging to be in person, but just kind of wanted to see thumbs up for folks who are going to be around November 28th. Looks like most, no, not all. No. So I don't know if we're able, those who are thumbs down or shaking heads, is it possible to be remote and do a hybrid option? No, not at all. Maybe. I guess bottom line, we'll need a quorum. We don't necessarily need everyone. And so we can try to facilitate some of those inputs offline. And the thought, I think, correct me, Tyler, is that we would have at least probably 2 or 3 sessions of, really intensive November session to really brainstorm and to do some moving forward of the 5-year action plan, and then we'll bring it forward for discussion at the next meeting after that. And
that is correct. Yeah.
the meeting after that, we'll see.
Yeah. So the first meeting is, as Dan described, high level, but starting to get into it a little bit further than what we have done this past year. And as we've kind of run into that challenging time management of an agenda and being able to have this harder conversation. And we were hoping to at least, spend a little bit of, in-person time and trying to use that to the best of our abilities in that first day, recognizing that we'll have a second night. And Dan's going to ask the second part of the question here in a moment. And which may not be virtual, may not be necessary, depends on how we do on the first night, with the thought that the third month is, kind of like, okay, this is what we heard, this is what we have proposed, and did we get it in the ballpark? And so we're seeing it as kind of a 3-prong approach. And what we're really hoping for is not to have a 2-month delay in between conversations, because that's when things kind of get lost, and we're very aware of that. And so we're trying to help you and trying to figure out how we do it, recognizing, gosh, we're in the holiday season.
So the second part is the meeting following is December, and that puts us at December 19th. And I think this one's one of those, are we actually thinking that we'll pull off a meeting? I believe council is taking a bit of a break, or hoping to take a bit of a break around the late December holidays. And that might affect our numbers for Bureau. So I'm just not sure if that makes sense. And in which case we would come back in January and have that follow-up meeting, the second meeting of the 3.
Can I say something? I had the privilege to chair last year Bureau's meeting, and my ask had been for us to come together in person at least once or twice. And I would love, I know that 2 folks said maybe they couldn't make it. If Dan could, I don't know if there's like a poll or something that we could do to make sure that these conversations are something that are in person, whether those dates don't work, or if we need to find other dates, if that works for staff. I can't tell you how much more I think we could get done if we could be in person. And when I said that 12/22 is my birthday, it only means that I would expect a cake if I were asked to come near my birthday day, which mostly gets forgotten because it's another holiday. So.
Party poppers, all those lovely things. I'm not necessarily sensing a lot of enthusiasm for the December date. Definitely a no.
What about, Dan, what about something that's like a little bit earlier, like even the week before that in December? Because the kids are out of school the week that you're talking about, but the week before that would be like much more doable, or the week after the November week that we're talking about is like back to, not that you have to sort of send out a poll, but like maybe that week, one of those 2 weeks in between would be a higher hit rate. I don't know if there's other meetings that would fall in that time, but just a thought.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do some wrangling, because we've got the wonderful folks who support us at the recorder's office, and potentially other staff that would need to be involved, and that's, I think it's doable. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to take the feedback, right, that we want everyone there if we can get them.
Yeah, and before board member Teeter speaks, the other part is trying to give a little bit of a gap in case there's work that needs to be done between the first meeting and the second meeting. And if we get them too close, that could be trouble. 2 weeks may be fine. And it, it feels a little bit, I agree, it feels a little bit more manageable to do the 2 weeks versus getting closer to the end of the month. So recognize that, and I think we can work with the city recorder to do a poll to make it more official, and for those who are not in attendance tonight to be able to weigh in as well.
Board Member Teeter.
So Jenny sent out an email saying one of the November dates for city council is going to be removed. I don't remember which date that was off the top of my head. And I'm a little also worried even bringing this up because it feels like that would scrunch staff time to even prepare for the Bureau retreat. But what date was that? And would that provide staff enough time to even get ready?
Yeah, that was November 7th, and unfortunately, probably not. If it was the switched, we might, but because we're trying to include some facilitation outside the organization, I think it's going to make it challenging.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we can potentially poll. We can can kind of look to be as flexible as we can, and but ultimately I think what I'm hoping I got out of this and confirming before I say I'm done is in person that works for folks, and the hope is to have everyone or as many folks attend and participate. Okay. And I'm hearing enthusiasm and commitment to getting a 5-year action plan done, so I appreciate that. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Dan before we close the meeting? Board Member Vitko, or not Vitko? Yeah, Vitko. Did you have something to say?
Not for Dan, but just something I probably should have said at the opening. So if we're done with regular business, if we can have board communication just again for a second, I apologize.
Yeah, I'm happy to open up that agenda item.
Thank you. Like I said, I should have said this at the beginning. For those of you who don't know, I did not reapply for my position on the board of directors. So my term will be coming to an end at the end of this year. So as you just heard, I won't be at the November meeting. I actually will be in Mexico on an airplane flying to DC. So going from my husband's 50th birthday party to do some work in DC on the 28th. So really can't do even remote if I wanted to. So depending on if there is a December meeting or not, I will do my best to be in attendance. I wish I could be there in November. I love being in person. That's my favorite. And I have not got to be in person with you guys the entirety of my time on the Bureau board because it's been COVID the whole time. But I just want to be sure, the mayor's not on here, but current and past chairs, thank you so much for letting me serve, Tyler and team, your staff. Being on the Bureau board was a long-term goal of mine. As many of you know, I was on URAC from the very inception until I came over to the board. So I'm sad to have to step away, but my current role at TriMet is just, the job is so big and so encompassing. As we move forward and some of the projects we have on the horizon as a Bureau board for the city, I find that there might be a lot of conflict of interest. So I'd have to abstain, and given my responsibilities, I think there's so many people who want to serve this city. So making space for someone else to step into the board who has better time and capacity to give to the city like the city deserves. I'm trying not to get emotional. I love this work that we're doing. And so I'll be very sad. I know many of you I'm still in regular contact with outside of work, so that'll be great to maintain that. But thank you. Thank you to the city and, Tyler, for your support and friendship over the years. And again, current and past chair, Tivnon, Hassan, Walton, all of you guys who have been around. I adore you, and you guys are doing amazing things. And then I will just go on just a little bit with the new counselors. I'm so excited for you guys to be part of this adventure. I respect both of you who are on here right now very much. So I'm excited to see your contributions, and I am not leaving the city. I'm still in downtown. I will still be vocal and annoying if I have to be, so don't make me mad. But thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Board Member Mitko. We're going to miss you. And TriMet is lucky to have you. The other part of it. And happy birthday to your husband.
Oh, yes. He'll be 50 on the November 3rd. So
it's coming up.
Yes, we have about 25 people going to Mexico. So
I'm glad you didn't make this public. And Board Member Vitko, hopefully we do have that December meeting so we can properly thank you as well. And obviously have brought a lot to downtown, to Beaverton, and both wearing your professional hat and also your personal hat, and then representing the Beaverton, by all stretch of the imagination. As you know, I hope you stay involved in all the ways that you can, even if it's not in this capacity, because we appreciate it.
Thank you. I love this city so much, and I just continue to love it more and more as we, the leadership that's been here at the city level, and at obviously the various committees and boards that we run. So just makes me love it more and more every day. So I feel lucky just to live here. And obviously in my day life, my day job, I get to also serve the city of Beaverton as well. So I'm winning no matter what. So
okay. All right. Well, we have come to the end of our agenda, so I'm going to close out the October meeting. We'll see you at the next one, most of you. And thank you very much. And we are now adjourned. So have a good evening.